evening, everybody.
Good evening.
I'd like to call the June 4th meeting of the Mount Vernon Board of Education to order. Please stand for the pledge.
We don't have a location for it?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As long as everybody had the same question. I know.
Good evening. Before we take the roll call, there's a few things that we need just to let the public know. There were a few unique circumstances during the 2019 school board elections. The first was the fact that we had 4 open positions with 3 customary seats expiring on June 30th, 2019, and the balance of a seat vacated by former trustee Stanley Russo, also up for election. The second circumstance was created due to the order in which the 4 candidates were elected. The purpose of this statement is to address the nuance of filling Mr. Russo's seat and the effects thereof. As you may be aware, as the status of a small city school district, we did not have any obligation to fill the vacancy created by Mr. Russo's resignation. As such, the board appointed trustee Melissa Munoz-Patterson in August of last year to fill the remainder of Mr. Russo's term through the date of the May 21st, 2019 election. As such, at the conclusion of the election, the person who garnered the 4th highest amount of votes in the election would receive the balance of Mr. Russo's term, which would run May 22nd, 2019 through June 30th of 2020. The person who received the came in fourth in the election was Dr. Serene Ning. Dr. Ning was sworn into Mr. Russo's term on May 22nd. As such, tonight we are operating as an 8-member board. We have no option at this point to fill the vacancy, as state election law does not require, it has no accommodation to fill a seat that is vacant between the date of the election and the start of the new school year. So from now until June 30th, we'll operate as an 8-member board. We welcome to the table tonight Trustee-elect Warren Mitchell. And Trustee-elect Melissa Munoz-Patterson. And they will be sworn in at the Board of Education's regularly scheduled reorganization meeting slated to be held on July 2nd.
Roll tonight?
And they're sitting at the table this night as part of our onboarding process. It is customary to invite new trustees to sit at the table to observe the board's proceedings. They have each signed a confidentiality agreement that binds them by the same rules that govern the rest of the Board of Education in executive session and here at the table. Though they will not be participating this evening and they will not be voting on anything, but they're here as observers, and we wish them very much luck and congratulations.
Roll call?
Roll call. That's next. Where'd it go? Trustee Miller.
Here.
Trustee Williams. Trustee McOwen.
Present.
Trustee Ning. Trustee Jaros.
Here.
Trustee Saunders.
Here.
Trustee Torres.
Present.
Trustee White.
Present.
Quorum is present.
Communication from the public?
The Mount Vernon Board of Education recognizes the critical importance of community discourse and involvement in the education of Mount Vernon's children, and accordingly members of the public are invited to speak at each regularly scheduled board meeting subject to the terms of board policy. Speakers must register in advance no later than 4 p.m. on the date of the meeting by contacting myself, the district clerk, here at 165 North Columbus Avenue, by phone at 914-665-5235, or via email at rmccormack@mtvernoncsd.org. The board welcomes all respectful comment, whether praise or criticism. However, identifying and criticizing a specific student, parent, teacher, administrator, or other Mount Vernon education employee or official is strictly prohibited. Such complaints must be presented and addressed through the proper administrative channels. Each speaker will be allotted 3 minutes to speak, with up to 1 additional minute to be used for the speaker to summarize and conclude their remarks. If appropriate, board trustees or the superintendent or a designee may immediately respond to the speaker's remarks. Our first speaker this evening is Mr. Mark Stuckey. Our next speaker is Mr. Hammurabi Bay.
It was right there.
Mr. Bay?
is. Okay. If he comes up. Joe's calling him. Go on.
All right, that concludes the public comment portion of this evening's meeting.
Feels strange without the tape. Now, we are going to be entertained by the Graham Performing Arts.
Yes, this evening, as part of, under the Superintendent's Report, we have a student presentation. Graham's school is interested in serving as a feeder school to our Performing Arts Magnet program, and as such, they have really stepped up and really enhanced the performing arts opportunities at Graham School. And as such, tonight they will perform an excerpt from the play that they are putting on, or just put on, and actually will be doing another production later, is a scene from Aladdin. So, Dr. Hunter McGregor, you want to introduce the advisors for this production? Let the kids go, and then bring them up.
Good evening, Dr. Hamilton, Madam President, and Board Trustees. It is my pleasure to introduce to you several staff members that shared in my vision. My music teacher, Miss Molina. My art teacher, Mrs. Reeder. My fourth grade teacher, Miss Sanzi. And Ms. Rabinowitz is my media teacher. She's unable to be here at this time. But also, I would like to give credit to Mrs. Johnson, who is one of the parent of one of our teachers, and Miss Stacia Johnson, as well as Jan from Beyond Costumes, located in Yonkers, and they have been such a great support. Also, I have some of my staff members that are here. Thank you so much, as well as parents. Thank you so much for your support. So we just hope that you enjoy our production, and we ask for your support moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Aladdin, your courage has taught me that the ancient law is meant to guide us, but only love can change the world. I hereby declare that the princess shall be free to marry whomever she chooses, whenever she chooses, and that one day she shall go out of love with wisdom and grace. That's where we'll be.
teacher, 2 or 3. We're on a job, you think about you ain't never had a friend, never had a friend. You ain't never had a friend, never had a friend. You ain't never had a friend like me. Like me. Like me. You ain't never had a friend like me.
Just to let everyone know, we're going to do our final production tomorrow, 10 o'clock a.m.
Oh, you like that stuff, huh?
Never had a friend.
That's my favorite.
Like me. That was cute.
That was great. Okay.
Wait a minute, I thought you lowered, didn't you lower that? No, that was the one here.
I tried to lower something.
You're gonna end up on the floor.
First of all, I would like to say that was just fantastic.
Bravo. Great job, everyone, and Graham School staff, thank you, and parents, thank you so much for coming out this evening. Appreciate it.
And we'll resume public comments.
Our first speaker this evening is Mr. Mark Stuckey.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Evening.
It's working. When they called my name, I was outside. By sitting on the board many years ago, my thing is children first. And it should never have been Mark Stuckey coming to the podium to speak when our children should be first. The way I feel is our children always come first for any program or anything. With that said, good evening, board members. Congratulations on the new elections. I hope everyone is taking off their shoes and laying back and going to run real good. One of the things I want to speak about is the maintaining of the pavers that's going down at Thornton, where the auditorium is. As many of you are homeowners, and you do know after a certain period of time, pavers wind up giving way and they drop or they raise up due to the climate and whatnot. What's going to take place with the maintenance on that when the time comes over a concrete slab being poured down? Because you're pumping a lot of money into it, and the long term could be a year, 2 years from now when they start moving, going up and down. What's going to take place with that? And how is it going to be maintained? And what will the dollar figure on the backside of all of that will estimate or will look like? That's the first thing. The second thing is I understand that Mandela is slated to be closed. My question is, Black Wall Street, Dr. King, Mandela, Dr. Zalakafer. What do they all have in common, all those things? Black people fighting for something. It took a long time to get the name Mandela put on the school, and we were the first school to have that name. To close down the program, to take the name and remove it will be a disgrace. The program was designed to help children who could not work in the general population, put them in a smaller setting. If the program is not working, two things happens. The first thing, whoever's sitting at the helm is not doing, he or she is not doing their job. The second thing would be we will lose a lot of children. Now, I understand that there's a new name that's supposed to be given or a new program in place of it, and I can be wrong. If I am wrong with the new name or where this funding or how the program's going to be, forgive me, and I apologize for it, as I have always done. But it's dealing with a program, dealing with youth who are incarcerated. Now, if this program is being slated for that, our children are not children that coming from an institution. Our children have a problem with just getting the information, locking in. So if you're going to change that name, don't. If you're going to shut down the program, look at it, reschedule it. One thing that I'm going to leave you with. When I sat on that board, this board right here, I had a meeting up in Albany with the Commissioner of Education. And that's when we was going through a real rough time here in the city of Mount Vernon. And the people the Commissioner of Education, it was about 5 or 6 of us, and everybody had their wish list. The commissioner said to me at the end, after asking everybody their wish list, so what's going on in the city of Mount Vernon, Mark, Mr. Stuckey? And I said to him, what do you mean? Your district is failing. You're not doing what you're supposed to do. We're going to smack your hands. We're going to throw sanctions down on you. I replied by saying, without the tools and the resource, you can't do anything to us. And I stood firm with that. Because if you want something to work, you have to have the tools and the resource. Please, do not shut down that program. Revamp it. We need that program here in the city of Mount Vernon, plus the name.
Thank you. Do you want to respond?
I'm going to ask Mr. Policio if he'll respond to the paver question, and then I'll respond to the Mandela, the closing of Mandela. Mr. Policio?
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Nice to hear from you, Mr. Stuckey. Two parts to the pavers situation. The first one is how the pavers came to be is they were part of the original design when when Thornton was designed. And they stay very consistent with our new design. The same pavers are at Pennington and also at Graham. The way that we're going to maintain them, I don't know what the cost of maintenance is going to be in the future, but the idea behind the maintenance of the paver is the paver is put on a subcompacted floor of item 4, concrete on the top of that, and then the paver's at a very tight joint. They maintain the same PSI as a sidewalk, 2,500 to 4,000 pounds. That is pretty much able to have a vehicle drive over it, let alone a person. So we don't anticipate the pavers losing their level. Different from what you do in your home, because you typically don't put item 4 under it, you typically don't put concrete under it. So this is a commercial grade paver installation. So we don't foresee that in the future.
Thank you. In terms of Mandela, this has been a much debated topic. There's been no conversation about what will happen with the name, per se. There will be a new school going up at the site currently known as Mandela. That is slated to be a pre-K through 8 building, and the board could decide to keep that name or name it something else, but there's been no discussion about the name. In terms of the program has not been cost-effective in terms of the results, and there will always be students in our district, as in any district, who need alternatives to the traditional approach to education. And we have a couple of options that will be presented in September for those students. First of all, the majority of the students currently on the roll at Mandela will graduate out this year. Those youngsters, of which there are about 7 who may not graduate this year, we'll continue to offer them a shared program, which we do now between the district and BOCES. The remaining students or additional students that may be identified to needing a non-traditional approach to education will be provided through a sundown or PM kind of program that we're looking to implement, and we already have the framework for that and a design that apparently was very successful in the past. In addition to the alternative to suspension, which is the capstone project, which was initially presented to us by Judge Armstrong and has later been embraced by the district, and we're moving forward. But Judge Armstrong and a committee of folks who received a grant through the city and the school district were able to go through a training session at Albany and generate this program, which is known across the state as Capstone. So we have 2, I think, very strong options for those youngsters who would generally be candidates for a non-traditional educational program. In addition to that, the other thing that we are really working very carefully on is identifying students who would potentially become candidates for an alternative program so that we catch them earlier on, so that we're catching them before they're behind in credits and before they get adjudicated to a system that unfortunately makes it very difficult for them to get out of. And by doing these early interventions, we're reducing the number of students who ultimately need a non-traditional approach.
Not to debate with you, Dr. Chris.
Go to the mic.
I'm sorry. What are we going to do, or what's planning on taking place? What dialogue on the name?
There is, the board has talked about a process for naming schools in general, and that process is still ongoing. There is a subcommittee of the board that has been working on that. We had a teleconference 2 weeks ago on this very subject involving potentially impacted buildings. So the board has not completely resolved how they are going to go about that process, but do know that that is a duty of the board and within their authority if they should choose to change the name of any of the schools or discontinue the use of a name in any of our school. But there is a process that the board, at least the committee of the board, has agreed to use to make sure that all interests are represented and that we hear from the various constituents who may have a particular allegiance to the names of our buildings.
Board members, please take in consideration of the name. Please do not throw that name away. It means a lot for people. I would not be standing here compassionate the way I feel about what that person have done. Each one of you know what he has done, how he laid his life down for the people. So please, look at it and don't throw the name away.
Thank you, Mr. Stuckey.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Hammurabi Bay.
Good evening. I'm Hammurabi Bay. Evening to the community and to the board.
Talk into the mic, please.
Not enough. Thank you. I'm here because I heard that Mandela's name was going to be changed. I was at Mandela when Mandela moved from 11th Avenue to Columbus. They at first wanted him to go to Grimes School. I went over there as a contractor and saw that the place was not ready to be moved in. And then it got changed and they went to Columbus School. Now I see that it got phased out again and you put him in Davis School. And now it looks like you're putting him out. for the people of color and for all the other people here, if you call yourself an American, you should not be getting rid of Mandela School. My two twins graduated from that school. My granddaughter graduated from that school. That school is a necessity. Some children cannot deal with the roughneck stuff that's happening up at the high school. They need someplace to go at so they can graduate. My daughter, when she found out she was graduating, they gave her her first period off. But she was going to school for law. So if you was going for law, why would the school district give somebody a day off? Why didn't you give them some preparatory for the college, for Monroe College? She got a master's, associate degree at Monroe, and then she went down south on a basketball team, and she got fired because she spoke her mind. I'd rather for her to speak her mind and get fired and then let people walk over them. So this seems like a systematic way of getting rid of Mandela. And I hope that you are not participating in that, all of you, to get rid of our culture. There's a lot of fighting going there. But if you do, Mother Nature will take care of everything. Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes public comment.
Thank you. Report of the superintendent.
Good evening, everyone. I do have a presentation to make that I'm going to do from the podium, so just bear with me, and then I'll come back to the dais. Good luck. Good to see you as well. This evening, I am very proud to recognize some of our board trustees, and this is presented by the New York State School Boards Association. I received notification that the New York School Boards Association created a recognition program designed to acknowledge those school board members who strive to continually expand their knowledge in governance and their skill set. The NYSSBA's recognition program is comprised of 4 achievement levels, which are reached by accumulating points for participating in training activities such as Board Officer Academy, state-mandated training, legal conferences, or custom board retreats. According to NYSSBA, there are certain board members here this evening who have earned the Board Mastery Award, that's level 3, and the appropriate certificate of recognition and commemorative portfolios, which they have provided for me to share this evening. These members will also be recognized in NYSSBA's newspaper on board, which will be published soon. So I'm first very proud to present to Trustee Darcy Miller the Board Mastery Award for leadership development totaling 250 points. Trustee Miller? You got to be in it to win it, and you get a portfolio. You're very welcome. Thank you.
Tile 13.
Trustee Adrian Saunders for accumulating 250 points. Pleasure. Trustee Melissa Munoz-Patterson for accumulating 75 points. This is for leadership development training.
You go, girl. That's nice. Got my little portfolio.
Congratulations. Not a pressure. Trustee Micah McOwen, totaling 75 points for leadership development training. You want to kiss her? Yeah, you'll pass. Trustee Wanda White for leadership development, totaling 150 points. Congratulations. Trustee Arlene Torres, Leadership Development, 150 points. And in his absence, Trustee Serene Ning for Leadership Development Opportunities totaling 150 points. And I will give these to Board Clerk Rick McCormick to give to Dr. Ning when he returns. Good. I just want to say publicly, these are certificates, and the amount of time that it takes to be a board member and an effective one that's well-trained, particularly in understanding the role of the board as a board trustee and guiding the ship. This is no small feat to accumulate these kinds of points and to make a commitment for this position for which you get no compensation, which is a huge, consumes a lot of your time, effort, and energy away from your home, your families, and your jobs. So on behalf of all the kids and all the parents and all the teachers in our district, all of our staff members who you may not get to interact with on a daily basis, I want to say thank you for what you do for our district, and I am honored to serve as a superintendent and be a part of such a dynamic, amazing, effective, well-organized board of trustees. Thank you. And now resuming the superintendent's report. Today, a group of our students performed at the Board of Regents meeting in Albany. I received 4 emails and 2 phone calls praising our students on such a stellar performance, and it really served as a reminder to the Board of Regents what they do and why they do it. Our students represented our district with exceptional dignity and poise. They were then hosted by Senator Jamal Bailey for a tour of the Capitol. So it was a great experience for them. So on behalf of Dr. Collins, who helped organize this and prepare our students through her guidance and direction and leadership, along with one of our teachers, Miss Angela Hall. Thank you and kudos to you, Dr. Collins. But more importantly, please commend our students on my behalf for representing the district with such dignity. We have a special presentation tonight. We have, as you know, been undergoing a security assessment in the district, and tonight we are pleased to have that report and some pending recommendations. Dr. Matthew Margali, did I say that right? All right. As president of CLPS Consultancy Group, he's been working in our district and all of our schools and their safety teams this past school year. Some of his services include, but are not limited to, crisis leadership training for school administrators, comprehensive security risk survey work, which includes physical on-site observations and feedback to school leaders on their safety procedures and drills, school threat assessment team training, in-depth training for school security personnel in conjunction with Mr. Rosario and his team, and the Employment Development Emergency Preparedness course, which everyone took in September as part of their mandated training on how to respond to school-based emergencies. And lastly, the implementation of a school proprietary software called TAP. I'm losing my place here. It's a TAP app, is a mobile application system that allows instant and reliable communication horizontally between employees, first responders, and other key stakeholders during emergencies. Matt is here tonight to give a summary of his work in the district and next steps. So, Matt, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Hamilton. Thank you, Board, for allowing me this opportunity. And I must say, I enjoy speaking to governing boards. I travel extensively, and I like to speak about this topic specifically because your job as a board is to govern and make decisions what's in the best interest of your school district. And I think if you were to ask any parent in the audience here tonight, those of you who are our parents, if you were to ask them what is the most important thing to them, it's that their children can go to schools and feel safe and secure, free from discrimination and bullying and harassment. And we see there's a lot of challenges that are facing schools today. So it's my pleasure to actually give you an overview of what we've been doing this year. I knew from the get-go when I met Dr. Hamilton, Dr. Gorman, Mike, the executive committee, there were some things that they wanted to do, and it was made very clear to me that safety and security was the #1 priority. So I want to say for the record, for the parents here tonight, you can be very proud of the decisions of your leaders here because they have taken this to the next level, and I'm going to be happy to report what we've been doing here in the City of Mount Vernon School District. Hopefully this battery works. It does. This is going to test my eyesight tonight, so I've done research in this area, and real quick, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time, but there are some things I want to go through with you so you have a kind of a holistic understanding of what's been done. 5 areas have been identified that are very important to create safer schools. They include emergency planning, training and drilling, equipment and supplies, collaboration with first responders, and communication capabilities. So we operate on what we call the 3 pillars of school safety, which I would argue and say that this is going to be your foundation in a school district. Preparedness, prevention, and protection. We call those the 3 Ps. I want to quickly go through each one of these and tell you some of the programs that we've done and implemented in the City of Mount Vernon. Preparedness, just by definition, these are activities that take place before an emergency occurs. It includes the continuous cycle of planning, training, drilling, and evaluating. We're looking at anything that can affect the school district, your employees, your visitors, and your students, whether it's a natural or human-caused threat or hazard, okay? So it's important to make sure that the City of Mount Vernon schools are prepared. One of the things, as you can see on the right hand here of the screen, we've established comprehensive emergency plans at all the schools. They've been digitized and they can be managed in real time by school administrators. We've conducted what we call risk surveys at all your schools. We've identified any strengths or vulnerabilities and areas that need improvement. We perform required safety drills at your schools. This includes fire, evacuation, lockdown, lockout, and shelter drills. We've also coordinated building level safety team meetings at all your schools, the principal and other key members of the staff, where we regularly discuss safety issues relevant to each school. We also provided professional development training at all the schools, including crisis intervention, threat assessment, and emergency communication. So we've taken a lot of steps here in all 16 schools, working with each district administrator to get the schools prepared. This is our preferred goal. This is always preferred. If we can prevent something bad from happening, that's what we would like to do. That's our desired goal. So the activities here are going to focus on what we call early intervention strategies to prevent targeted attacks, suicides, other forms of violence, bullying, and abuse. So I think it's safe to say we're all aware of the things that occur from time to time at schools around the United States, and no place is immune. So what we need to do is we need to focus our efforts to prevent these kinds of incidents. So what we did is we set up first what we call threat assessment teams at each of your schools, where we've met individually with your school safety teams, and we've taught them how to assess behaviors by students that could lead to violence. Again, this is early intervention and prevention. We've also set up a building level reporting system. It's really important that students at your schools understand that they have an avenue where they can go to a trusted school administrator or guidance counselor or faculty member to report things in advance. So we've set up a system in your schools to do that. And we've really fostered a lot of open communication with the students and the staff, and this is a continuous process. So what we want to have continue here is that culture of safety, and you'll hear me talk about that a little later. The third P and the final P is protection, okay? Now, protection occurs when prevention fails or is not possible. So there's certain things that we cannot prevent, severe weather emergencies, unforeseen accidents, but there are other things that maybe when prevention fails, now we need to take action to protect kids, okay? And that is another focus here. So what we wanted to do, first and foremost, is enhance your communication capabilities. And your tech director is going to talk to you more about that because there's a lot of integration and a lot of crossover of what we're doing here in Mount Vernon. But enhancing communication capabilities is extremely important, and here's why. Because you can have good emergency plans, you can practice your drills, you can create a culture of safety, but if you can't deliver emergency messages from point A to point B in real time, then it's going to be very difficult to protect people. So communication capabilities is extremely important. We've also performed tabletop scenarios. One of the ways to test your communication capabilities and your emergency management capabilities is to test the decision-making of your school administrators. And I'm happy to say we're very impressed with sitting with them and teaching them how to make decisions in real time, whether it's a natural or human-caused threat that we deliver to them. And then, of course, reviewing your building level communication and reunification. It's very important as parents that if there is an emergency at school, we need to reunite children with their guardians and parents. So these are all things that we've done. This is the timeline. I won't spend a lot of time on this, but I'll say at the beginning, it started back in May of 2018. And, you know, we met with your central office administrators, security director. We met with Mike, who chairs the safety committee district-wide. A lot of meetings, a lot of discussions, and I remember sitting with Dr. Hamilton and saying, if you bring us in to do this, we're going to be very candid, and we're going to do what needs to be done, whether you want to hear it or not, okay? You know, I'm a father of 3 children, and I take this seriously. When I walk into a school, I look at every child like they're my own. When you see these beautiful children that started this board meeting, it's worth protecting, okay? So Dr. Hamilton looked at me and he shook my hand and he goes, that's exactly what I want. And I knew right there what kind of leadership you had. So we went through this process. You can see the timeline where we are now. We're actually in June. I can't believe it. Wow, it's almost, the summer's almost here. And you can kind of see the timeline. This is just a chart. I'm not going to go through this chart. Understand each individual school, we specifically met with their building teams. We assessed their drills. We trained their threat assessment team. We set them up with a TAP app communication system. And where you see the red X's all the way to the right, that means those schools are 100% complete. And those other scheduled, they're over the next 3 weeks, we have various things scheduled. So this is a continuous process. And I want you to be aware, and I want you to understand that this level of training and preparedness is not done in every district. Okay, I just want you to understand this exceeds what the normal standard is. And the reason we're exceeding it is because it is the most important thing we can do is keep our schools safe. Lastly, I'm just going to recommend some things moving forward so the board can hear this and any onlookers can also hear this as well. We are going to be enhancing physical security at your schools. Some of your schools are currently under construction. So there are certain things for the purposes of this is an open session. Obviously, you can appreciate the fact that we're not going to disclose any information here because this is confidential. But we are taking every reasonable step to enhance physical security at all your facilities to keep your children and employees safe. We're going to reassess your school sites sometime in 2020. We need to go back, and after we work with your leadership team, we want to make sure that the implementations that are recommended and are a priority are taken care of. Other recommendations are to continue with the safety drills at each school. It's very important to continue to drill, whether they're fire drill, evacuation drill, or lockdown drills. We're going to continue with the building level safety team meetings. Every school by state law has to have a building level safety team. And it's very important that they are regularly engaged and taking part in these activities. And it's really important, so we are going to recommend that as well. Also, the digital emergency preparedness training is something that we're going to continue with. Providing refresher training again, threat assessment and also the TAP app. It's important. You get new people on the team every year. They need to sit down. We need to go over the software. We need to go over the process of preventing violence and communicating. Also, it's really important. Bullying prevention and intervention is extremely important. I mentioned in the beginning, every child walking through the door of any of your schools, they deserve to have dignity and be treated right and fairly. So we know bullying and ridicule impacts learning, and we want to get out in front of it. So we're going to focus a lot on early intervention and bullying prevention. We also need to do things that are practical, and it's not always pleasant, but there's a program out there called Stop the Bleed. There's basic training that we can provide to your classroom teachers, to your administrators. In the event a child or somebody becomes injured and is severely bleeding, it's possible emergency responders won't arrive on time, so we want to teach them how to save a life, okay? We also need to talk about situational awareness training. Your front office workers, your security officers you have working in your schools, we want them to be aware of what they need to look for to prevent and how they can prevent and intervene early. Also, the district-wide active assailant shooter policy. This is, again, this is a big topic now. We need to have a standard policy in your district that's reasonable and practical and easy to follow, because if the, unthinkable ever were to happen, we need something that we can follow to mitigate the negative impacts. And along with that is something called hard corners. I'm going to introduce this to you. I've spent a lot of time in Broward County, Florida. God bless the whole room.
Okay, what happened?
Anyone else? No. This kind of evolved from the state of Florida. My firm spends a lot of time down in Broward and South Florida, and a term called hard corners. This is something where the classrooms, if there ever was an assailant or a violent action inside a school, teachers and students need to move to a certain part of the classroom that's called a hard corner to shield themselves from that threat. So we're going to work with your school administrators in each of the 16 schools here, and we're going to make sure that these classrooms are set up properly. We're also going to look to supply trauma kits. It's very important. I go into schools all the time and we say, do you have the proper equipment if a kid is severely bleeding? And they're like, yeah, well, the school nurse has it. And I go, well, that's not always practical. What if the school nurse can't be on the second floor or out the athletic field or in the gymnasium? So we want to make sure that we equip you with the proper equipment and supplies. And lastly, and probably the most important, and that's why I want to end with this, is we need to promote a culture of safety through open communication and forums with students. They are, believe it or not, these beautiful babies you saw today, I call them babies, my 10-year-old's still my baby. That's right. They're our best resource. And by teaching them early and appropriately, creating that culture of safety in the classroom, at recess, in the cafeteria, that's your best resource as the students. So we're going to continue to work with your administrators to promote that culture of safety. My last slide here is, through collaboration, trust, and commitment between the Mount Vernon School District and our group, we firmly believe that we have safer and more secure learning environments. So, I'm happy to report this. I'm thrilled to be a member of the Mount Vernon team. I really mean this when I walk into your schools and I meet with your teachers and I meet with your staff. I look at those students, and I want you to think of the students up here tonight. It's worth protecting. It's worth protecting. And I commend Dr. Hamilton, Dr. Gorman, the executive staff, and the board for approving these services, and we hope we can help you in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Matt, if you don't mind, if you would stand at the podium to take questions from the board trustees, if that's the desire of the president.
Sure.
Hi. I was wondering, could you describe a little bit about what these hard corners are?
Yes. So a hard corner, if there's an assailant in a building walking down a hallway, if students can't escape and my son is on the floor of an old school in Harrison, so there's no escaping. So they're going to do what's called a lockdown. So they're going to lock and secure the classroom doors. What they need to do is they need to move students to a part of the classroom where if somebody's looking through the classroom door, they can't see the student. So we designate it as a hard corner. What most people don't understand about the Nicholas Cruz incident that happened in Parkland last year is he never stepped 1 foot inside a classroom. That's what's so tragic about it. all the victims were shot through open doors because they were not in a hard corner. So we want to make sure there's hard corners so the teachers can bring children there as a safe place of refuge if there ever was an emergency.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a few questions, if that's okay. These threat assessment teams that you formed at each school,
Yes.
is that the same team as the building level security team, or is that a different team? I was confused.
There's usually the same team members. Each, by state law in New York State, every school has to have a building level emergency response team. However, the state does not require threat assessment teams, although it's required in about 30 of our 50 states. So what we do is we just put them through a special training, research-based, how to assess threatening behavior. And these teams are specially trained every year. So as we get new people on the team, we run them through the training, we give them scenarios. There's certain standardized questions that would be asked regarding the life circumstances of a student, which research indicates to us whether it's a higher level threat or a lower level threat. At the end of the day, the great value of the threat assessment team is twofold. One, it prevents violence. And two, it provides the mental health professionals in your district with data they can use to treat a student that's making threats.
So are these the members of these teams, are they teachers and administrators, or are they counselors?
They're
or
a mix.
It's both.
There's
It's a
usually
mix.
a counselor, administrator. So they are a mix of whoever really the building principal decides at the building level who he or she wants to be trained on the team. So
And as part of the training involve training these people how to train their colleagues to spread this knowledge and awareness?
yes, so at the I guess you could say the general faculty or staff level, there's what things to look for to report, and then there's the assessment piece, and then the third piece is the management and the mental health treatment. So it's a three-pronged system, so it's multifaceted, if that answers your question.
I think so. I mean, I know, I appreciate the chart where you are tracking very specifically the training that you're providing the team members in each school building. Are you also tracking whether that knowledge is being passed around to the general faculty and administration?
Yeah, so each building principal keeps minutes of their safety committee meetings and any activities that they performed at the school. So those are archived and there's record of it. So it's going to really boil down to building leadership. So assuming the building principal is delivering it outside of the committee, again, it's going to be up to the building principal, but there is accountability that can be viewed from central office on what these schools are doing throughout the year.
I wanted just to pass out an example of one of the survey reports for you to look at your leisure. We could ask any questions at another time from Matt, but this is an example of the thoroughness of what's going on at each school level with the training throughout the year, and we have one of these on each one of the schools anytime Matt and his team are
And
involved.
Mr. McMahon, if I may add to that, one of the software solutions that the schools are using is the emergency plan, where the principals can log in any type of training they do with or without our coordination. It's archived into a report, and we could print out monthly, weekly reports. So there is accountability for what goes on inside the schools.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that obviously that there's the system is set up in such a way so that we have accountability at each building level, so that there's great knowledge. You know, it doesn't just sit with 3 people in each building and 2 of them are out sick the day it happens. You know, I mean we got to make sure everybody gets the training.
Excellent point. And yes, we have a lot of accountability built in. And at a later time, if you would like, I would be happy to sit with you and show you the systems.
Second question. Generally, I understand for very good reasons we don't share all the details on how the district would respond to potential emergencies, but can you generally say, how does the communication pathway work right now, right? If there was a fire at a building or an active shooter or something, do parents get texts? Does it go through the principal of that building, or does it have to go up to the superintendent? What if he's unavailable? Just a general idea of how the communication works.
Great question, and you're hitting the heart of what I research, what I studied, what I published in my dissertation. Communication capabilities when it comes to emergencies needs to be redundant. There needs to be multiple modes of communication so messages can be delivered. So we are on a pathway to establish as many redundant modes as possible, which includes mass notification system for parents, email blast, mobile apps, enhancing the PA system, portable radios, and other programs you use, such as single wire and other software. So the answer is yes, and if you read through some of the reports, you will find that the communication capabilities in Mount Vernon is pretty solid, and we're just going to continue to maintain it and enhance where it needs to be enhanced.
I might caveat that, if I may. The reason I asked the question is more to address the community directly and not really you, because this is a constant issue we have with reaching the community, where, you know, we do robocalls, we're on Facebook, but if the parents of these children refuse to be on Facebook, refuse to, you know, unsubscribe from all the robocalls, give us fake phone numbers, never update their phone number, you know, we as a school district plead with you, please give us updated contact information so that we have the right information with you. I know for a fact there's families in this district that we don't have their real contact information. And it's, when there's an emergency like this, we will do everything we can, we literally physically can to contact you, but it doesn't work if you don't give us your information. It doesn't work.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I'm just going to, you know, for the record, echo the same thing. Parents need to provide the school with accurate, updated information. It's to your benefit. Be rest assured the school can do what they need to do internally to communicate and protect your children, but it's also important for you to provide updated information so the school can contact you as well. I just want to affirm that. Thank you.
Okay, last question. The last point you hit on, which is, you know, building culture of safety, is obviously the most important. Do you have, and I know you have specific recommendations for us, and we can look at policy and other things. Do you have any recommendations for community members specifically and parents? You know, like if I want to talk to my second grader or kindergartner about whether it's bullying or there's school safety, I mean, what can I do as a, not as a school district, what can I do as a parent? Do you have any suggestions or resources for that?
I do, and there are resources. And again, parents, ultimately, again, the school can only control what the school can do while the children are inside a school building. Once they go home, we always suggest parents know their children probably better than anyone. So parents need to be able to communicate with their children at their level on what an emergency is and what they need to be able to do. Again, it's going to vary from age group to age group. You're not going to say the same thing to a 5-year-old you are to a 14-year-old. But I think we need to, as parents, reiterate from the youngest age that you don't have to feel scared, you shouldn't feel intimidated, and you need to feel safe. And if you don't, you need to communicate that to a parent or to a trusted school official. I think it needs to start at the
Kids from grades 3 to 8 had to read a minimum of 30 chapter books.
And the great thing about it is it really is getting our kids excited about reading, because I can see kids all year long and they're anticipating the carnival at the end of the year. So it really has been the incentive that it was designed to be. And I challenged my advisory group. I said, every one of you should be at that carnival. So there were youngsters, some of them were about 10 books behind, so they had ultimately about 2 weeks to get caught up. So we'll see how they do. We also have an item on the agenda tonight that I'm going to ask you to give your full consideration, and that's related to the SMART bond. And I gave you a little preview of that in the Weekly Confidential, but I'm going to ask Mr. McGrath if he would come and fill the board in on what we can anticipate in regards to this tab. And then that will be followed by Mr. Policio and Mr. Baviello on the change orders that are before you for consideration this evening.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So last month at a board meeting, we talked about moving the money to fund the Mandela product, the Mandela site, and the idea to use bond money outside of what was fundable to make up the difference. That extra money going into that product is coming out of the bond, out of the technology section of the bond, which leaves us a problem because now we don't have funding for, or we didn't have funding for, the security wiring, the data wiring, and the infrastructure, technology infrastructure pieces that we need for the Mandela site and for the Davis site. So the logical venue for this is going to be the Smart School Bond application. Now, as you may recall, there's been a huge delay for several years because they changed the rules and then they kept us kind of in this holding pattern for many years. So, but we don't actually need that funding up until September or October of 2019, so we have a few months. But still, having waited 2 years and the state having done nothing, we had some concerns. So we reached out to the state and we said, listen, here's the situation, here's where we are, what can you do for us? And they gave us actually a pretty good option. They said, you're going to have to modify your application for a couple of reasons. One, the new rules and the requirements. So based on just the fact that they changed the rules, we have to modify the plan. All the technology that we planned 2 years ago is obsolete. That's gone. So all the parts have changed. So we need to redo a whole parts list and come up with a whole redesign. Now we need to apply to fund STEAM infrastructure and the Mandela site infrastructure, both for security, which security was not part of the original application, and the technology, and intercom and PA systems for those schools, and Mount Vernon High School because it needs it, and a update to our intrusion detection system district-wide. So we have a lot of new things that we need to add to our application. And we'd like to rewire Mount Vernon High School and get their wireless up to speed. So New York State said the following. If we can meet very tight deadlines, in other words, redesign everything in 6 weeks. By the way, it took us about 8 months to do it the first time, but we were a little ahead of the game. Redesign everything in 6 weeks, meet our deadlines. They're going to work with us, and they're going to let us be a pilot for the new mechanism. It's pretty good, right? That was a major coup, major victory. So we met the deadlines. We hit them. They worked with us. We troubleshot their new forms for them. We went back and forth. They went in. They helped us. They did kind of a pre-approval to help us make sure we got it right. So it is ready to be approved. Smart School Bond is expected to meet sometime this month. We are top of the list, and we are expecting to get a review, initial review in June, with a very strong possibility, according to the state, that they will approve the full amount, or they'll approve the full amount this summer. Now, the full amount is $7.96 million. There's a non-public allocation. We're a little nervous. What's that going to be? We will give the non-public schools in our areas $44,000, which means that of the 7.9, we expect approval for the 7.91 this year and this summer, which means that we actually hit our goal, we hit our mark, and we should be able to do what we set out to do. So thank you guys. We're here. We actually had a lot of obstacles in our way, but we managed to do it. A couple things to remember. Between now and needing to fund security and reducing for the Mandela product, we do need to find alternate sources for technology. So we're a couple $1 million behind where we want it to be, so we'll have to talk about that. But we're going to hit our target. We're going to be able to put a new PA system in Mount Vernon High School. We're going to be able to actually build these buildings, and we'll actually be able to upgrade the wireless in Mount Vernon High School based on this kind of fast turnaround. So it's a win. It's a real win for us. So thank you guys, and that's what you'll be voting on tonight. Anybody have any questions? I'd be happy to answer.
What is the high-tech security features? What does that cover?
Great, thank you, thank you. So high-tech is, it includes things like door sensors, cameras,
okay.
PA system, telephones, intercoms in classrooms, that sort of thing.
And that'll just be in the high schools?
It'll be at the Mandela site. It'll be at the, it'll be all the construction sites. So that includes, but the Smart School Bond specifically will pay for the STEAM site, the Mandela site, and Mount Vernon High School. Although the money won't go as far as to buy cameras for Mount Vernon High School, but we'll be able to do some of the preliminary wiring for it.
Okay.
So it's a huge step forward. Guys, we waited 2.5 years for this, and in 6 weeks we kind of did a major 180. So we were really grateful for the state to work with us. It's a big deal.
I have a question. You just mentioned we're going to need alternative funding for other technology projects. Do you have an idea of what that looks like or what the amounts are for that?
Sure. So things like, so we're doing a minor, we're doing an upgrade to the wireless at the elementary schools, but we really need to go back and rewire them. So there's several $1 million there. We're going to need to put in new switch infrastructure. There's a couple $100,000 there. So I don't have the exact numbers, but you see where it is. It's a big number.
I see.
When we talk about putting in physical security in all the schools, the numbers get really, really big, really fast. So, but we're talking about, putting cameras in all the schools, putting door sensors in all the schools, putting a lot of the things that Matt alluded to with his physical security. Those type of things have to be discussed and figure out what our priorities are and how to fund that.
And is there a temporary or anticipated timeline for some of those projects?
Well, for the elementary schools specifically, we are doing a wireless upgrade for them through the IPA, through BOCES this summer. So they actually, What we anticipate next year is going to be like for the elementary schools is a network that is, after 15 years, been replaced with wireless. So boom, huge improvement in terms of their wireless connectivity. We're replacing a lot of their laptops. So we're expecting to see a lot of the instructional technology elementary schools get a big boost next year. So we're good that way. In terms of security cameras and putting security cameras in all the schools, that's a bigger conversation.
Okay, thank you.
But that would probably be impacted by the work that Matt's doing, right? In terms of the schools that might be considered to be the most porous or have the fewest hard corners or whatever might be the ones that we would prioritize that way.
Yeah, that ultimately is going to be a leadership decision as to how to do that, but yeah.
Yeah, that was related to my question about prioritizing. I understand that the allocation to the Mandela building is specific to, funding that entire construction project, which is the only gut renovation, happening in the district where we have no students there, so it's an ideal time to do it. And then we have upgrades is the logic behind focusing on the high school and the STEAM Academy just the size of the buildings? Those are the biggest buildings?
Well, the STEAM Academy is going through renovation as well.
Yeah, I understand.
So that makes sense.
But so is Thornton and
Well, they're
other
also
buildings too.
I'm sorry. So
Yeah.
Thornton and Graham and Pennington are
Yeah.
also getting these upgrades, but they're just
Okay.
getting it through bond funds.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, I was specifically talking about what SSBA, Smart School Bond, is funding.
Okay, but
So-
we are going to have similar types of upgrades happen at all the high schools and...
Right, so that's the goal, is that you'd start at the high school and you'd work your way backwards.
Right,
Exactly
understood.
correct.
Thank you. Great job, Joe.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate
Thanks.
your
Thank
work
you,
on
everyone.
this.
Thanks.
Thank
Great
you.
job.
This will be a big coup for Mount Vernon to be the first district in the state to receive these funds. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that the state honors their commitment. Change orders.
Okay.
Can you be sure to speak to the change order I spoke with you about earlier that Trustee Jaros raised
Sure,
earlier?
absolutely. We have 3 change orders this evening. They're all from Talt Electric. Guess we'll do that one. The first one is at Pennington to relocate a data power outlet for a smart board. There was a discrepancy in the electrical and the architectural contract drawings. It ended up in the wrong place, and we had to relocate it. The second one is at Pennington as well. It's to replace circuit breakers and electrical panels, RP1A and RP1B. It's about 60 breakers. So through the construction, some of the breakers, if they're federal breakers, they're no longer meet the electrical code. So once that was determined and we changed the load that was going into the circuit panel, the breakers needed to be upgraded, and we made that change. Right, and of course, the malfunctioning ones were replaced as well. But when something is time-aged, what happens is, you have 4 light bulbs, you put them in all at the same time, one goes out, you should probably change the other 3 because they're right behind you. So it's the same kind of concept. And then the final one is fire door extension kits for the releasing of the fire doors. In the architectural plans, the doors appeared to be closer than they actually were to the existing wall, the barrier wall next to them. And a fire door is locked in with a magnetic hold open. And what happens is when the alarm is activated, the door is automatically closed to contain the fire. That's the theory. What happened here is it was short, and so extension kits had to be purchased. Trustee Jaros had questioned the pricing of the extension kits on a retail basis based on what we pay. In construction, I can't speak to what Trustee Jaros found at a local store or whatever, wherever those were actually found online. All these prices are negotiated through Peter Gisalfi's office and through Savin Engineering. They are given their contractual markups, and then the labor is attached. I would imagine that whenever you do something in a municipal job, that us as civilians and homeowners, we can go out to a Home Depot and find something cheaper. There's definitely, that is a possibility, and I think that may have what happened here. I'm not quite sure what Trustee Jaros had actually uncovered. But these were competitively priced. Again, they were signed off and vetted by Peter Gisalfi's office and Savin Engineering, and then they were passed on to the district.
Trustee Jaros, you okay?
I'm still not okay because the prices that I found were 1/6. I think it was about 1/6 price for the door magnet thing. And it was exactly the same model. It was what was put on the picture over there. It was the same thing, and I was very, very upset that, you know, the price was 900 something when it would have been, I forgot what price I gave you, Ken.
Yep, 156.
156.
Yeah.
We
The
can
other was
confer with
254.
Peter Gisalfi's office and see if something went wrong in their
Pretty large
pricing.
markup.
That is some big.
Let's
That's a
talk
huge-
about
That's a
price
huge- I mean,
gouging.
What they do.
I have a question, trustee.
Yes,
Madam
please.
At some point, will we get a report on all of the errors and omissions and some of these change orders? Because we've had a significant amount over all of the projects, but I haven't seen a comprehensive report that reports the quantity and the types. Can we get that information at some point?
So, yeah, absolutely. We're tracking it now, and at the end of the project, after the certificate of substantial completion, all those types of negotiations will come into play on, you know, we hold back a certain percentage of money, both on the soft costs and the construction costs, and we will then divvy up, if you will, who owes us what, and that'll be all done through the attorneys.
Okay, I think it's also important to look at it just in terms of our future projects and our future awards that we might consider. I just think it's important to have that information.
Absolutely. I mean, these are massive projects, and so errors and omissions happen.
Right.
They definitely happen. The majority of the change orders that you saw are unforeseen conditions. The next one is errors and omissions, and then unfortunately, the third one is the district's request to make a change. We are the lowest number there. But I don't think we're any different than any other district when it comes to this kind of stuff, but we will have a thorough investigation through Ingerman and Smith when this is all over and try to recoup whatever money we're entitled to.
Is that going to be on a contract by contract basis?
Yeah, I mean,
Not building by building. It's one, you don't do it until, like, all of Gisalfi's work is over and all
No,
of
no, no, I
Taft's
think
work is
we
over.
would do it project by project. So, you know, the main contractor that we speak about from Pennington and Thornton, that'll probably be our first stop.
Right,
with that
that's
stuff.
wrapping up.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
I'll just add, as competitive means something very different in like municipal contract world than it does in like the normal English language that human beings use on an everyday basis.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, it does.
Just so everybody understands, when we say a competitive bid, that's a very specific legal term
Right.
that municipalities are obligated to use. It does not mean it's the cheapest possible way you could have done it.
Absolutely.
If only it meant
Only.
that. That is not what it means.
That's right.
Sir?
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. And lastly, the next task force meeting will be held on Tuesday, June 11th at 6:30 p.m., and that will be at the Mount Vernon High School in the community room. And I'll be sending you a reminder this week as well. And that concludes the superintendent's report.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
On the report of the president. That's me. First of all, I'd like to say good evening to everyone. Welcome to our June 4th on this wonderful evening that's outside. And thank you for coming out. I get amazed. I would first like to welcome our two newly elected board members, Mr. Warren Mitchell and Mrs. Melissa Patterson, and welcome to the board. I would like to congratulate Trustee Andrea Saunders and Serene Ning for their re-election to the board. So welcome, thank you, glad to have you on board. Well, on on May 30th, I attended the education meeting where we had the 3 high school principals to give us an overview of what's going on in each building. Just a brief overview that I will give you now, and we'll hear more from these principals on early fall. But let's start with Mount Vernon High School. We had Mr. Gonzalez. He reported that all 9th grades starting in September will be receiving AVID training, and they are gearing up for the IB program to start with, I think, 20 students that have been selected to start in September.
21?
I think 21 students will be taking classes, but they won't be the first DP program.
Right.
The DP program will be the following 11th grade year.
Okay. Just stay there, because keep up with me. The next one is Thornton Performing Arts, where Ms. Evelyn Collins is the principal. They're increasing the program to include 10th graders next year. 11th graders, I wasn't sure. And we're getting ready for a big production on June 7th, which is The Wiz. That's from the 7th through tonight. A partnership with Mrs. Felicia Richard, and is working now with Mrs. Collins. Hopefully, in the future, with Mrs. Richard's contacts, we will be having some excellent performance from some distinguished artists. So that's going on. And we need money we do. To put on a production like she's putting on, we really need money. So we're going to have to start doing some sort of fundraising to help to keep our performing arts program at the top of the list and to make sure they're the best in this community. So I'm just throwing that in. Next one, I had the STEAM Academy with Ms. Sharon Bradley. We partnership with Lehman College, which our own Dr. Ning had a lot invested in that. Our students will be spending the summer at Lehman College, where they'll be working on research labs, biology class, and microbiology classes. They had the STEAM Expo, and I hope to see it on the 13th, and I'm recommending that everyone go to the STEAM Academy. They said this production was fantastic. They took ideas, what is needed in Mount Vernon. Some of the ideas they had to work on was Memorial Field, the sewer, the crime and drugs in Mount Vernon, and they had to do a whole lesson. This is a year-long project that they worked on to find a solution for each one of their assignments. So they said it was fantastic. We can go see it June 13th at 6 o'clock. 6 to 7:30.
At STEAM, at the building?
At the STEAM building.
Okay.
So,
June 13th.
June 13th. They say it was fantastic. We also, they have also partnership with other colleges offering our students great opportunities. Those who know me know that I was so excited after that meeting, I ran straight into Dr. Hamilton's office wanting more. I want more. We need Mount Vernon to be upfront. When we have something negative happens, CBS, ABC, Channel 12, they're all here. But they don't know the good that we're doing right here. And I want to see that good happening here and spread all over the community and spread all over New York State, because this is how good we have come. It was such a great experience to hear all the good things that are going on in our high school. Everyone can tell us about the negatives that's going on, but there are so few that can tell us what good that's going on in our building, and we need to be shouting it from the mountaintops. So please go see the STEAM program June 13th. Go to the Performing Arts Program, The Wiz, on June 7th through 9th. Let's support our people. These are our students, our parents, our principals. Let's get out there and support them. So I hope to see everyone there, and that ends my report, I think. Yeah. That ends my, so yeah, I get real excited and going. I get too excited when I see the good. I was born and raised here, so I've seen the good, I've seen the bad. Now I see the future. So thank you.
Thank you. Good job.
Can you give me the time again for the STEAM Academy?
Huh? The
6 to
STEAM is 6 to
6
7:30.
o'clock.
June 13th. And it was fantastic, guys. I mean, you saw it. I haven't seen it, but they said it was fantastic. And this is, remember, this is our first year of STEAM, of the STEAM Academy. And if they're doing this kind of work now, just look at the future. And that ends my report. Any committee reports? I think we only have Trustee Torres.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. The Budget Committee met on Friday, May 31st at 8 a.m. to continue discussions related to the multi-year budget that we have been contemplating and are working towards. Toward that end, we discussed several items that will impact the multi-year budget. One primarily is transportation. We're looking to do a deep dive, so to speak, into the transportation of students both within the district and without the district. Also looking at transportation that's provided to certain schools that is unrelated to special education and that is unrelated to transportation that is required pursuant to the McKinney-Vento Act for our homeless population. We continue to discuss the CTE programs, the continuing development and implementation of CTE programs. Along those lines, we discussed the possibility of conducting a survey at the high school to determine interest that will inform which CTE programs will come online over our multi-year plans and will be addressed within the multi-year budget. We looked at the per pupil cost per building to determine where there were areas that needed additional support. And again, just towards the end of fulfilling our district-wide plans to provide equity within each school building. We'll continue to review more data along those lines and make appropriate assessments. Let's see what else. We discussed the Mandela, the additional cost that will be added to the budget in 2020 when Mandela comes online, including staffing costs, although those costs will be somewhat controlled because many of the staff members were reassigned within the district, so we won't have to hire all new staff. There might be additional staff, but we're not hiring staff to fill a completely new school building. But one of the items that we considered as we planned this multi-year budget, I think it's quite timely that we had the technology presentation and we talked about the smart band because that's something else that we'll need to add to our multi-year discussion. And given the quantity and the amounts that are necessary to bring this district where it needs to be technologically, that's another item that we'll also have to add and discuss and ultimately report on at another budget presentation. So initially I just want to mention one thing for CTE, we're looking to prepare another shop, so to speak, and we're looking to have something ready for the next year. And again, the determination as to which particular area will be something that needs to be further explored. Our next Budget Committee meeting will be held on Monday, June 17th, here at the district at 8 a.m. Thank you. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I apologize. It's actually, we had to change the date. It's actually Wednesday, June 12th, here at the district at 8 a.m. Apologies. Thank you.
Trustee Miller?
I just wanted to remind the board that Saturday we have our long-anticipated rescheduled from October, Beyond the Badge, Cops and Kids team building event at Holmes from, I guess, 11 to 1. And I hope that some board members, I know we have a very busy week with a lot of activities, which is exciting, but I hope some of the board members can show up and see how it goes. It's the first time we've done it, and we're hoping if it's successful, and we believe it will be, thanks to Dr. BC and the liaisons. We are hoping to add this to our Mind, Body, and Soul event on September 15th. So come out and check it out. Thanks.
Trustee Miller, on that time, I have 9 on my calendar. Is it 11?
11 is when it officially kicks off.
Gotcha. Okay.
But you can get there at 9. There's a lot of work to do. A lot of us are going to be getting there at 9. And there'll be a walkthrough. I think we're walking through early afternoon on Friday just to make sure we have all these different stations to make sure it's all set up.
Okay, thank you. Trustee McGowan?
First, before my policy committee report, if I could make just one small announcement on the family and community engagement front. This is not a school activity, but if anyone's familiar, there's a national group called Moms Demand Action, which is specifically Moms Against Gun Violence. The website is wearorange.org. wearorange.org. Orange is the color for raising gun violence awareness. The Westchester chapter is having an event this Sunday, at Heavy D Memorial Park at 1:30 p.m. in the afternoon, and they do arts activities and games for kids and stuff. So, not a school activity officially, but I'm personally involved and aware and doing what I can to raise gun violence awareness, so if that's important to you. That's happening this Sunday. Okay, my policy committee. We had scheduled a policy committee for June 12th also at 8 a.m., but now I am concerned that conflicts. Dr. Hamilton, can you be in 2 places at once?
Sure. Not that good.
So
we need to
I guess we'll reschedule that.
Yes, we'll pick another.
We will have a policy committee meeting at some point before the end of the school year to discuss. On my agenda currently is number 1 on the list is we need now. Thank you, voters, for approving having a student school board member.
Yes.
It's fantastic. Very excited about that. This has never happened before in Mount Vernon, so we need a policy for it. So we're going to talk about. We have some ideas and some guidance from precedent about how that process would work, about selecting one, choosing one. So we're going to work on that. We also, Rick and others have been working on drafting a policy and guidance about branding the district. Some of it big picture and some of it small picture, like font and colors and things like that, to make sure we have consistent signage across the whole district. So we'll talk about that. And we had not discussed this before, but based on the presentation that we just had, I think we should review our safety policy, and whenever you're ready to have recommendations to changes, please be in touch with me. But when we have policy committee meetings, it's typically just the superintendent and I and relevant administration. The public are always welcome. You can also always email me, mmcowen@mtvernoncsd.org, and ask me questions about school district policy. Thank you.
And I thank you. And last but not least, Trustee Saunders.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, everybody, for re-electing me.
Yay.
So, I had a special education meeting last Wednesday, the 29th. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend, but was very poorly attended. We had 2 parents there. So next year, we hope to do something different. We hope to engage some of the parents in each building. I plan to have a chat and chew sometime in August to get a feel of what the parents want. I had so that's the Special Education Committee. I had my I had my safety and health and safety meeting yesterday with Mr. Policio and Patricia McElveen, Earl Murphy, and some other students, some other teachers from the district. And some of the topics we discussed were the Williams Lulu lift that's going to be replaced this summer. We are going to start having the head custodians come to our meeting, or they may submit whatever issues they have prior to the meetings if they can't attend. We have an employee, Jarvis Grantham. He's a risk.
He's a consultant.
He's a consultant, I'm sorry. He's the risk manager, and what he's been doing, he's going around the district and looking at issues that may have help us not get so much workman's comp issues. So he's taking photos. He's going from school to school as far as cracks in the ground and loose tiles and things like that. So he's going to report to us so we can have those fixed. We are trying to get personal protection gear for our staff, as like hard hats and reflective gear, so they can be seen where there's construction.
Oh.
Yeah. We talked about the emergency response with the gentleman here, so we discussed that. We talked about a safety committee, which we are going to have in the school during the summer months. So they need to wear, the employees, the construction workers need to wear IDs so that they identify, so anybody can just come in the buildings, because we're going to have summer programs in some of the buildings. Okay. See what else we discussed. Remediation and some of the boilers. We had a big flood at the high school so we're going to have to remediate that. So the new complaints we had were the geese, leaving droppings on some of the problems. So we have a company coming in with dogs.
I was just going to say, can we just get some district dogs?
Yeah, they're going to have dogs. They're gonna come. Actually, they're going to come in twice a week, right? Twice a day. And scare the geese, I guess, for about a year. And
Can the district just hire my dog? I'll just walk him over there.
Twice a
Traumatize
day.
the geese.
Twice a day in all the schools.
Close, I go there anyway.
Yeah, so that should alleviate some of the geese problems. There was a complaint about material being left outside in the dumpster at Thornton. The people are opening up their windows at the schools, and I don't think it's garbage. It may be just construction or trash, but maybe it's dusty, so we have to address that. We talked about poison ivy at Rebecca Turner. We need to look at that, and I think that's pretty much it for the Health and Safety Committee. And I had my last food pantry of the year on Saturday, and we had a record-breaking over 400 people. So it was good. Yeah.
Wow.
And I think that's it for me.
I have a question for the Wellness Committee. The food sampling, which I could not attend. I don't know, we can't talk about awarding contracts or anything, but how was the turnout for that?
I wasn't able to attend myself, but it was, from what I heard, it was hands down one of the, I can't talk about
No, I
too
thought you were getting ready to call the group.
No, we can't do that. We can't do that.
Yeah.
But we had students, everybody was happy and everything.
Yeah, a lot of students. How many was it? 30? It was 30
wow,
people.
wow.
Yeah, we had
About 30 people, and it was
okay.
very good.
Good.
It was very good.
Good.
So yeah, they had pictures on Facebook.
Okay.
Yeah.
There was just one other thing I wanted to mention, that is that when we spoke, I don't know if it was last meeting or, I can't remember, but we talked about the efficacy of our Facebook Live segments and how many people that attracted. And I just want to make sure we don't lose sight of the fact that we said we seem to be interested in doing one every month. And we're I think hopefully going to reach out to the liaisons to ask them what some of the burning issues are that they hear from parents, so that hopefully we can continue to engage the parents and publicize them in the same way, but just be more specific topic focused or what have you. Maybe we can get experts to come in, I don't know, but I just think we need to get a schedule up and running, starting in September, so that we're putting as much effort out there into the community as possible.
Yes.
What would be great, and just occurred to me, is asking some of the partnerships that we already have in the district. Like have somebody from Lehman College come and be on it and talk about the partnership.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's some plans going around now about who we'll have and
Yeah.
different things.
I just want to
but-
make sure we, in the beginning, that we appeal
Yes.
to the broadest population possible
Population.
because of all the reasons we've discussed.
Yes.
So, but yeah, there's so much material we could use.
And we have to find a way to get parents out to your special ed meetings and to all our meetings, different meetings around the district. We thought it was food, but
I
even
thought it was
though you
food,
had
but,
food,
yeah,
they're still not coming
Started
out.
just giving
But-
chips out.
But we have to find
Yeah,
a way.
Food wasn't working, so we just had a bag of chips and water.
So, now, no minutes, and we'll enter into executive session.
We're entering into an executive session tonight for the purpose of receiving legal advice from counsel and discussing third-party negotiations with a vendor.
Motion?
Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Trustee Torres, Trustee McOwen, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries.
Now, who's getting my
I think the
computer?
super said 30 minutes. Motion to reconvene, please.
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries.
Opportunity to remove items from the consent agenda.
There's one item removed in advance of the meeting tonight, and that's the item related to the smart bond. That was already pulled from from
11.5.
Authorization to repurpose?
8.2 for me.
Point two, oversee the implementation of the SEP program at Williams.
What was Darcy's?
The
11.5.
repurpose, 11.5, authorization to repurpose funding. Anything else?
What's the smart bond number?
Smart bond is 15.1.
Okay.
Motion to approve, I'm sorry. Motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Motion.
Trustee McOwen? Trustee White, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Motion to place 8.2 on the table.
Motion.
I just have a question.
Trustee Miller, second.
I'll second that.
Trustee McOwen, discussion.
In the recommended action, it says that we will, the hourly rates for a total up to $5,172.20. But on her staff list, it comes up to $9,102. I just want to know the explanation of a $3,090 difference.
Dr. BC, you want to respond to that? That tab's under your department.
Originally, when we had this, that first for the 3,000 something, or the 5,000 something, we did not have enough money to give to Williams to do the 9,000 something. But then when we looked at it, she has two grants. She has the Empire State Grant, and she has the SIG grant that she got the $500,000 for 5 years. So what we did, we extended. So we should have changed it to the 9,000 in the first line instead of going back to the right. So it was just a minor mistake. We just changed it to the 9,000.
So, okay, because I looked at all the other ones.
Right, and that's what it is.
Top and bottom.
And that's what it is. So we'll change it to the 9,000.
Thank you, that's all. That was it.
Good catch.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. 11.5 motion, authorization to repurpose original funding. Trustee White,
Second.
Trustee Miller. Discussion.
Explain us.
Yes.
Thank you. Explain it, please.
So originally, when we declared this an emergency and dedicated the funds from the general fund for the purpose of the asbestos abatement at the high school,
Yeah.
we thought that the best way to do it. Then, with the 2020 bond, we found that we were able to fit it into the bond and be aidable at our regular aid rate, rather than have it be through the budget. So this work has been done through the bond, is aidable, and these funds that were set aside by the board
As an emergency.
a number of months ago is no longer needed, and so we are returning that money to the general fund.
Okay.
It has no particular purpose, it just becomes a part of the general fund and will become part of the fund balance at the end of the year, to the extent that there's money left over.
But it says.
So it's just a simple transaction of moving it
Okay.
from a earlier purpose, now just back to the general fund.
Okay, when it says, to complete certain critical repair works identified in the BC.
So those things were done.
So those have all been done? Okay,
Yes.
so that's retroactive.
That work was done through the bond.
I'm fine.
And became aidable as a result.
Yep.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. 15.1, amendment to the Smart Vernon, amendment to the Mount Vernon.
Smart Vernon.
To the Mount Vernon State School District Smart Schools Bond Act Investment Plan. Motion? Trustee White?
Second.
Trustee Saunders? Discussion. All those in favor?
Yes.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Trustee Miller?
Rick, I'm sorry, can I, is it too late to pull 11-4? It is, okay, I'm sorry. I wasn't paying
Do you
attention.
want to discuss it? Was there a question?
No, I just wanted to vote on it individually.
Yeah, we already voted for it.
Yeah, I know, I know, sorry.
Trustee Miller, no. Motion carries.
Unfinished business? None? New business?
No, unfinished, well, I guess under unfinished business, Dr. Hamilton, do you want to tout the swimming program now that we've approved it for the summer?
Yes, the swim program, thank you for that. Swim program launched this weekend, open swim. We had, on average, between the start and end of the day, between 20 and 40 families.
Great.
Very excited. I got pictures all weekend long about the pool and what was going on there. And this was despite the fact that the
Flood.
The heat.
We had no hot water.
Yeah, the
we had no
heater.
hot water.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So,
Had no hot water. So rather than close, I said, let's just let people know that the pool, the temperature in the pool was fine, but they had to shower.
showers, yeah, right.
So even having that as a potential barrier was still fine.
So great.
Yeah, it was
Well, that's
very, very good.
fantastic.
Did we get hot water in that building now?
Yes, we have a
had
temporary
boilers
boiler in place.
All right.
Has the website been updated
Great.
with the new swim lesson schedule that we just approved? I mean, we literally just did it like half an hour ago, so I assume not. but-
And was that
Okay.
covered by insurance?
Yes.
Boiler.
Good.
Oh.
Thank you. And the boiler also, the temporary boiler?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay.
Also under unfinished business. I'm sorry, I bear with me, I might bring this up every single meeting, but remind me on the transportation study, where does that stand? I don't remember.
Mr. Policio? Sure. We talked about that in cabinet this week.
So since the last meeting, we are compiling, we have an initial spreadsheet of everything that we do currently. And we brought it, I believe they brought it to the budget committee.
To the budget committee, right.
To discuss some ways to maybe offset it. But so that was the first step, to identify exactly what we do in and out of district, field trips and athletic trips. Now that we have that information, I'm going to ask through the superintendent that we get a clear-cut picture of what you're looking for. We have now established the baseline, and now whatever you're looking for, then we'll investigate the study at that point.
Does it make sense to forward that information to the whole board? The baseline, whatever you provided the budget committee, just of what we do right now, because I don't know.
Maybe we don't need a transportation study. Maybe we just need to know what we're doing and then evaluate that, as
Yeah.
opposed to paying another entity to do a transportation. I'm
That
just
would
curious.
be
I don't know.
the superintendent's decision.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Any more unfinished business? No business.
I have, I don't know if this is a business matter or whatever. So we just came off of an election, and now that New York State has early elections, so we have an election June 25th, the school board's always going to be kind of competing or something against the electors, the whatever election's going to happen in June. And I know I had a conversation with Caitlin from the library. The library has a budget for their trustees, like that. Not for that, but to put them on, like, whatever committees they're on, and to follow them and focus them, like, so in the newsletter, instead of having, maybe not all about the kids, but maybe a trustee on the library, they kind of like do stuff like that. They're always on Facebook. So it should be another way where we can expose all of us to the general public, because a lot of people don't know what's going on. There was a library vote right before the school district vote, and now there's going to be a mayor and city council vote. And I think people are getting confused. Even when we tried to get signatures, people were just, they didn't want to have anything to do with it.
They're burned out.
Yeah, so I guess we need to make some attention or focus on what we're going to do next as far as how these elections are going in the city. Just an observation. Something to think about. So I know, like I said, they have a budget that they focus on, some of their trustees, and on what they're doing and what committees they're doing. So we'll look into that.
I think also
It's
with
definitely
the
worth talking about.
Facebook Live and
If we keep
can
doing, the
get
more
more
critical
of us
mass.
on that.
Yep.
And,
So
we
I don't
had
think
such
school
low voter
district can
turnout.
promote us like
But we had such low voter turnout this year.
Yeah, we did.
It was just the lowest, I've never seen anything like
What I heard
that.
is that we're doing so well, no one really cares.
So everybody should go on
Zero
vacation.
tax
I know.
The schools are doing great.
Wait till
I
next
mean,
year.
a
Why
lot
come out
better
and
than they
vote?
were.
We raise
So they don't have
taxes.
any complaints right now.
But if you were to see,
Let's do something wrong.
but if you were to see the people that came out to the mayor forum yesterday, I mean, it was standing room only. There were podium. There were monitors outside because there was no room inside.
Where was it?
At Grace.
Grace.
So, right?
Yeah, it was.
It was so, if that many people voted, where were they in school board election? Where were they? I mean, they pay taxes. I mean, our taxes
Right,
are.
but I think this.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, I know it's- But
Just
they have a reason to everyone being out there at this point.
Is there a way to merge the school board election and the
that's-
library?
No, we don't want to. No,
No,
we're not doing that.
Well, other cities do it. That's
No,
what
we're
I'm saying.
not-
Is there a way
no.
to try to get the buy-in on the same thing?
No, because other cities might choose the school board trustees, like
Well, they-
New York City.
Because they manage
The mayor chooses.
They manage the district.
Chancellor and.
No, but yeah, I don't think, I think it's just too
So it's
much. But we
not.
can't move the
Just a question.
dates. Yeah,
Oh,
we can't
just-
move the dates.
Just asking.
Yeah.
Any other new business?
We can't change the date by law, right, Rick?
No, we can't change the date.
I agree with you. Usually they have different.
It's not new business, but I was down in Florida at my granddaughter's high school graduation, and the superintendent made a real impassioned plea to the kids about their use of the internet. And I'm wondering, do we address that in school about their use of the internet and how children could be bullied and these things follow them for the rest of their lives? Do we address that?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
We
we
do
do.
that on a consistent basis.
do.
It's done in the classroom, and then principals conduct assemblies periodically to remind parents of that.
Okay.
One of the things that we're working on is creating notification to parents about holding them to a higher degree of accountability when students violate the code of conduct. Specifically requiring them to come to school for the readmittance conference, that's one. But I also had a meeting yesterday with Diane Atkins, was it just yesterday? With Diane Atkins about how we could create a partnership so that those parents who receive assistance, for example, working with the system to make sure that those parents are in fact guided to participate in their child's educational process, whether it's
a great
attending
idea.
one meeting a month, or visiting the school, or coming
Really
to
interesting.
How can you mandate, though?
parent-teacher conference, and then extending that so our parents, if a youngster is suspended for breaking a rule for more than one offense, for more than 2 times, that parent would be required to attend some kind of parenting workshop if it's around bullying, misuse of technology, sexting, that sort of thing, so that our parents are taught how to monitor their children's devices and how to hold them accountable. This isn't about being punitive to parents, but creating partnerships and helping our parents develop the parenting skills, because many of our parents have indicated that they're frustrated, kids aren't listening to them, they need help, they need support. So this is one way of doing that. Now, clearly, there are folks at the other end of the continuum who are very engaged, very involved, and they're going to come to school, and so you don't need those kinds of sanctions for that group. But for those other families whose parents may not be as involved, we have to extend the olive branch, so to speak, so that we are providing resources to them and helping them extend their learning experiences for their children in school.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to make sure that we're
Yes.
proactive.
Any other suggestions, old business, new business?
You want more questions? I can,
Ms. Saunders?
no, I'll let it go.
Okay. Hearing none.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
Boy, oh boy.
Before you.
Aye.
Yes.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Jeff.